So let's start today with an exercise. The practical application of this thing we call consciousness begins with just paying attention. So notice, listening. See if you can capture everything within you or around you. Listen. So imagine, if you will, your mind is like a soft, warm blanket wrapping itself everything you can hear. So ever so gentle. Listen. Listening, paying attention, all those sounds around you, within you, around you. Pay attention. You can follow these sounds through and through, from its beginning to end. Listen. Attention is also an important practice in empathy. As I spoke about last week, I'll do some recap. Discuss the importance of paying attention as a part of being conscious as a parent. And as we discussed too, paying attention to ourselves. Paying attention, more specifically, our feelings, our thoughts, our actions. Notice, paying attention. This is what I do when I come Thursdays to teach your kids. It comes in the form of meditation, but we're just teaching to pay attention. So we're listening. Notice, listen, notice. Things are happening all around us, unbeknownst to us sometimes. So if you listen very carefully, you will notice. I'm wondering if anyone has done this exercise with their kids. You have. Which one?
I asked about changing one thing about me. I asked if I could be more patient, how would I do that? I couldn't remember the phrasing. And I also asked, has there ever been a time that I made you so upset that you were afraid to tell me?
So that last one, the upset, yes, that they are afraid, would you be comfortable sharing that?
So at the time, she said no. I did that with Maya because we had some friends over and the boys were playing and she felt left out. So we took some time together. And she said no. She said she's never been too afraid to tell me. I was wondering, because she's just a very emotional child, so I was wondering if there was something. She told me that there was not, though. And then I told her, are you sure there's not anything? She said no.
Did anyone ask that question to their kiddo? I have, once upon a time.
So she did tell me, she said, well, the one thing, but I did tell you when I broke the window hanging. Remember at our old house? But she did tell us. But she said she was afraid to tell us. But she did tell us.
How did you respond to that?
Actually, very well. Pat myself on the back. I was like, oh, are you okay? And she said, yeah, I'm okay. And I said, oh, darn, that stinks. Like, and then I think I said, let's not hang on this anymore, okay? Because it's dangerous and that's how it gets broken. But we handled that one really well. We don't handle everything really well. That was just like a prime, I like recognized it in the moment. I could see how scared she was to tell me. So I knew in that moment, like this, I have to respond well to this.
So you recognize how scared she looked? If anything that could tell us to back off, all we need to do is just look at our child when they're doing something wrong. That gives us clear indication that maybe we have to be mindful about how we react, right? Or respond.
I've definitely not reacted like that in the past, though. Like, there definitely has been times where I've been like, are you kidding me? Why did you do this?
Well, conscious parenting is a process, right, of progression. Yeah. The more you are aware and you're paying attention, then you start to see what you really are, huh? Did anyone else ask this question or any version of these questions?
I asked if there was anything that, like, I don't know if I use this exact language, but like if there's anything that she would want for me to change to be a better mom. And her response was to change her room because she wants to redo it. I was like, okay, I'll ask you again later then.
I just do it later.
That's almost as good as no.
That's great. Yeah. I like that. You got a better response than I did, right? My daughter would often say, your tone, not mindful, Daddy. Ouch. So let's talk more about this conscious parenting. I kind of touched on this. And I think we need to discuss this some more. The relationship as being very crucial. The relationship with the child. That context, what you create for the child helps the development. Now, when I talk about relationship, I'm referring to a relationship replete with compassion and empathy and sensitivity and wisdom, meaning understanding. And then that requires just a whole lot of listening. That's a difficult thing because I work with families and have parent and child in there. And sometimes the parents, or a lot of times, the parents talk over the child or through or at. And children need to be heard, understood and believed. Regardless what they say, by the way, no matter how delusional it may appear, that's just what I refer to as quixotic syndrome. They're constantly in the world of fantasy, Don Quixote, quixotic, right? Syndrome. Constant world of fantasy. It's not illusory. It's not a delusion. But you pay attention and you just follow along. And you find yourself in the midst of that fantasy. And to me, that's wonderful, especially when I'm doing play therapy with children. They take me into this world. And I may mention before, if you listen very carefully to the story, there's a story behind the story that they carry. So build relationships. And out of that profound connection you have with them is your leverage. That's it, your leverage. necessarily need to overwhelm them with a whole lot of direction or imposing your will. They want to please you. That's your leverage. There's that love. And you can foster that and continue to foster that through paying attention. That builds connections, right? Deepens relationship, listening. As a therapist, early on, they emphasize that in school. Listen, just listen. I had a teacher one time said to me, I talk too much. What she was really saying is I don't listen. We do this often. Reaction, in terms of reaction, anger or frustration or irritation. Or maybe you don't, I don't know. Have you ever been upset with your child? Angry, irritated, agitated? Not Mary. I highly doubt it. And I make a distinction there between self-suppression and self-regulation. Self-regulation, that is ideal. Through your responses and your example, they see and seek, and they learn from what they see to self-regulate, right? To self-manage. Self-modulation. When I said last time, I do a whole lot of introspection, specifically parenting. Before, it was just about the meaning of life. Does God exist? What is love? Then I became a parent. Then it's all about, what am I doing that could make a difference as a parent? So one of those things would be, what is happening within me as I'm relating to my child that pulls from me a particular thought or an idea? So a lot of that could be biases, false belief that my child, for example, should be a particular way. Like compassion is something important to me, but it is my practice. It would be too easy to displace that idea onto the child and then have that expectation. Because, as I said, what follows, if the child doesn't meet that expectation, is frustration. That's what follows. So being aware of parental biases, attentional biases, implicit biases, we're constantly doing it, like throughout the day. Just being aware of that. So, give you an example of attentional bias. The child may be inclined to express a feeling. You don't address the feeling. You're more inclined to address the behavior. So you're only seeing or paying attention to what you deem important for you. Here's a parent bias. I was having dinner with a friend over the weekend with their child. No, this is a good example too. No friends. We went to Sapporo's this past weekend. And they sat us at the teppanyaki table where the chef is cooking in front of you. And there's a family of 4. Engaging with this family of 4, there were 2 little younger kids. And the parent or parents were coaxing them to say hello, and they did not respond. And then the parent says, in response, they're shy. Oh, yes. Yes. Can you share why you responded that way? Please.
Just the labeling of that.
Yes.
And then they internalize that must be what I am, and then they continue to respond in a way that aligns with that labeling, rather than just letting it be and not commenting on it that way, not making an excuse of it.
Yes. Yay. Yes. So I was shaken up by that. So I immediately, because I sat next to the family, closest next to the family, and I just turned around so that in hopes that the parents not say anything else. Turned around. And then, yeah. Yes.
Will you explain the hostile attribution bias?
Ooh, okay. There are aspects, different versions of this. One in particular stands out to me that I see often, and that is sometimes, whether it's a parent or when I interact with school, they say things like, this child is oppositional, defiant, and so on. Hostile. Destructive. So in my world, there's no such thing. In the world of psychology, there's no such thing as bad behavior. We don't define behavior as bad, regardless of what they do. I had a child a year ago, a parent sent me a picture of the child, picture and video of the child destroying a classroom. They removed all the other kids. And she needed to know how to discipline that child. It's bad behavior. So in my world, there's no such thing as bad behavior. Behavior can be impulsive. The child could be dysregulated, emotionally dysregulated, and therefore out of control. The child could be experiencing some kind of emotional upheaval that we're not aware of. And that response, destruction of property, is merely a response as a result of whatever is creating this stir, this problem or issue.
I know it's not question time, but can I ask a question?
Sure.
Another one?
Yeah.
So when I'm dealing with Maya, sometimes when she'll have an emotional upheaval, she'll be like what I consider to be pretty nasty. And she'll just like be, and I will use that phrase. I'll say, like, I can see that you're angry. I don't think that treating people in a nasty way is okay, though. Is that putting that attribution on her as a description of that behavior?
That is tricky because it depends on the child. Sometimes that can backfire, especially when the child's in a fit of a rage, and then you say, calm down. That does not help. Who wants to calm down during that moment, right? Especially a child whose prefrontal cortex has yet to develop fully. I mean, how many of us, adults, right, have full control of our emotions? Can you truly, I know Maya, I've spent a lot of time here. I can see where she's coming from.
Yeah.
Today she came up to me and said, hey, let me show you this. And then before I could, yeah, that's, how incredible is that, right? She's in her natural environment. So, yeah, impulsive, yeah, it's okay, it's okay. We have to be forgiving, first and foremost ourselves. Be patient, yeah. and then humble. Remember the humility part? Parenting requires that component. Yeah. And I often say, when a parent says, what if my kid is having a tantrum? Fantastic. What are they communicating to you? The louder the better. I hope she does it in the middle of Walmart in the aisle. Yeah, so she's expressing herself, and that's okay too. And it's also okay to sit down on the floor and say, hey, you let me know when you need me. Yeah. So it's that paying attention to what is in the moment, okay? The go-to sometimes is to want to suppress.
Yeah, I definitely, sometimes I'm like, I don't like that it's okay that you're upset, and you can be upset, but you can't talk nasty to people.
Yeah.
So that's kind of...
But what if talking nasty to people is a way? I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Of course
yeah.
not.
I'm just wondering
Yes.
if I need to shift what I'm doing there.
Oh, I see. Yeah. You can throw that out there. It's okay to feel that way, but you can't be nasty to people. Maya already knows that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can say it 100 times over. It won't make a difference because that's a form of communication. She'll figure it out. We all did at some point, right? When we grow up and matured, at least some of us.
Right.
1 in 10 of us, right? That's for another discussion. 1 in 10. I wasn't kidding. Anyway, staying present to whatever situation presenting itself. Here we go. Yeah. My daughter once came to me and she was really upset. She was little and she couldn't tie her shoe. And I just sat down on the floor and next to her and said, you let me know. You just let me know. Sometimes it requires that kind of attention and effort and time. But you don't have much time if you consider your existence on this continuum of time, right? You're not even a pinprick. You only have so much time with your children, so be grateful that they're having a tantrum. How zen is that, right? Yeah, you welcome that, embrace that. Louder, please.
Maybe some more meditation will get me there.
Sit forever. Yeah. 20 years, they say, to become a master. 10 years to become an expert. In anything you do, a task, if you work at it for 10 years, you're pretty masterful. See, that's all you need, another 9 years. Should be out of there, out of the home by then, right? So, the result is mindful reflection. We talked about this. Advice dumping. Verbosity, you recall that? That's the one of 3 things I told you I test for. Parents in my session with the kid, I'm sitting here, this is gross. This is utterly gross. Because it's complete annihilation of the child. Reducing the child to nothing more than an object. So that's why I emphasize just listening. They matter too. As much as we want to think we matter in their eyes, it's equally important that we listen to let them know that we matter. That they are still that twinkle in your eye, yeah? That makes all the difference in the world. Can you imagine your child just glancing up at you and just smiling at you, right? That's how much you matter. So it can take a long time to achieve the amount of self-reflection and internal control. 10, 20 years, right? I jokingly say that, but it's actually somewhat true. Necessary to parent in a way called for by this style. Did I not mention also this conscious parenting or contemplative parenting requires a whole lot of attending to your thinking, thoughts. It requires contemplation. I think we can think, right? We're capable of reason and logic. So it because it requires so much reflection, just understand that it's okay to be patient with yourself. It is okay. Sometimes you have to give yourself permission to let go of that guilt or being hard on yourself, thinking that you could have done better. Those thoughts will arise because you're a parent. Remember guilt? You cannot escape that, but that's okay too. You embrace that as well. This is conscious parenting, mindful parenting, right? So everything that comes within the purview of your experiences, you're actually embracing, you take in. So if you can teach yourself to respond in that way, can you imagine anything that arises within the purview of your experiences is transformed into that patience you're practicing, or grace, or compassion, or gratitude. Okay, if you want your child to be somebody, you must not have defined boundaries of who you are. That requires, again, self-reflection, understanding what your limitations are, acknowledging them, and you can't process your way out. And if you're not able to make sense of your frustration or anger or resentment, that's okay too. Maybe the next step is just to step away. Sometimes that's probably one of the most compassionate things you can do for your child and yourself, is to step aside. But understanding your boundaries and limitations is part of the process of growing to be a more conscious parent. I've been teaching this for years. And constant reflection, I sometimes feel I've gotten nowhere with this, but there are still limitations. There are still things I need to learn. In conscious parenting, there's no ceiling or peak where you reach and then you consider yourself a conscious parent. You're always en route to becoming a more conscious parent. And that's the thing about just focusing on behaviors, by the way. They're more than that. They are as complex as we are, if not more complex. Maybe we're not as complex because we're governed by a lot of history, pain and suffering. At some point, I think this part that we call humanity within us resorts to just a reaction to things. So we lose a sense of value as people, and we rage or we judge. So consider that they themselves have internal experiences that are very valuable for us to examine in the way of just paying attention. It doesn't matter what my daughter says to me, whether she wants to talk about God or Pokemon. There's complexity. It has nothing to do with the Pokemon. It's the thinking process and how she processes information and learns from her events, from her life. So, time in versus time out. I prefer time in, if that's okay with you. Time out, the only reason why I would hesitate to recommend that at all is for the reason we are social animals. And isolating, and I get it, right? Give them a moment to calm down. Give them a moment to think about what they're doing. Give them, or you, a moment to calm down and a break. But if you could, right, as a conscious parent, use time in and sit with the child in that state, you can create the very thing you wish for the child that you're doing using time out. One, in the context of time in, you help process with the child and allows them to think through their behavior and consider a better response. Yeah? Connectivity. So if you look there, it emphasizes collaboration. Isn't that what you want to begin with? How does timeout do that? It doesn't, right? Solitary confinement, right? Ooh. We're sorry. We've been recommending that for decades. Mistake. How does that foster conversation? How does that teach them self-regulation? I think it falls in line more with self-suppression or oppression. They're sitting there and we're relying on them to think it through. What if they don't know? Heck, you may not know. How many times have you gotten stuck and not know what to do in the moment, right? But yet we demand that they know. I know parents use timeout all the time. They continue to do so because it really gives them a break. But that's okay too. I think we all need breaks. For children, reflection is amplified in the context of relations, not isolation. Please keep that in mind. Aren't they constantly exploring? I like coming here and watching them. The cultivating so many forms of what I take into consideration when I think of a human being. Intelligence is like social intelligence and relational intelligence, emotional intelligence, environmental intelligence, just playing off of each other, recognizing one and the other, connecting in ways and forms that allows them to, over time, become more masterful. One helping the other, or the many helping the one. It's really neat to see. And all I have to do is sit back and watch because they can do just fine without me. And they learn their own way, right? They learn their own way. So that's okay. And they learn best in the context of play. So please let them play. Let them play forever. Because there will come a time when that will be eradicated from them. In the time being, what play does is just not nonsense. And just, it's they're forming ways and systems to create for themselves ways to relate. And you do that through play, especially for children. That's how you do it. And for adults too, I wish adults could play more. You know, there's play therapy for adults. You laugh. Ooh. We need to talk. Yes, it's fun. That's my chance. When the kids come to me, my parents think I'm talking about, respect. You need to be more respectful. They don't need another parent. They need somebody just to listen to them. So I get on the floor and I play. I let them guide. I play. Whatever they want to play, I play. Yeah. I'm connecting with them, right? In ways that matter to them. And out of that connection, I have leverage. This last part teaching your kids to be grateful. You do that sometimes, right? I think we do some version of that. Thanksgiving. Let's go around the table and express what we're grateful for. I practice Thanksgiving, or it's our thing. Thanksgiving is big in our family household, but I have never done that. But Jasmine has done that. I think because she's been exposed, like this past Thanksgiving. Let's go around the table and express what we're grateful for. You see, they'll find their way. So our way, if you want to teach, remember, any child, compassion, empathy, kindness, gratitude, listening, understanding. Well, you manifest or embody that first. Embody that first within yourself, and then let it emanate through your pores in everything that you do. If gratitude is important to you and you embody it, your child will become it, because that's what he or she sees, and they will express gratitude. I play that game in here with the kids because I'm curious. Once upon a time, I asked the kids, what are you grateful for? Simple question. And just about everyone will mention at some level family and friends. Once in a while, you hear Pokemon cards and stuff like that, but then they get around to it. They know what matters, because it matters to you. Oh, this is pretty profound to me, what Shafali said, and this one really resonates with me, and it made me reflect on my own parenting here. Love without consciousness is neediness, dependency, and control. Love is not enough, according to Shafali, and I concur, because we already do everything out of love for our child, but that doesn't mean it's right. So that's why being conscious, that consciousness associated with love is key. You have to be aware of the way you're loving. So one of the examples I've heard her make mention is, my kid has to have straight A's, because that will make my kid successful. The kid will grow up to get a job. And have to be really mindful of that kind of expectation imposed or placed on a child. I have an expectation that all parents need to be conscious parents. Why aren't you? Yeah, right. So I have that expectation. Every parent that comes in, I have that expectation. I can't impose that on that person though, right? I hold parents to a higher standard, because after all, you're parenting your child. So the impact you have on your child is profound. You better get it right, right? That's not realistic. We're all going to make mistakes, right? So be humble, right? Intellectual humility is the recognition that we are all fallible, even as parents. But be careful of the expectation you place on your child, though. Okay? Be mindful. Parental ego. Who here has an ego? Only one person. All right. The rest. Fantastic. You must teach me the way of the wise. Parent plague. Ooh, that sounds disgusting, huh? So the ego, it interferes and interrupts and disrupts, right? It engages in what's called intrusive parenting. We prefer to be autonomous ourselves, right? We want to live our lives independently, and we sure heck don't want anyone to tell us how we parent, right? Because we're perfect. So, but yet we intrude. We're intrusive. Sometimes, or maybe a lot of times, we place all those standards and expectations on our children, right? In hopes that we can shape them the right way. But be careful, behind that mask is really hiding some kind of insecurity and inadequacy within. It just plays itself in your parenting, which leads me to the concept, have you heard of this one? Ghost in the Nursery. In 1975, a social worker / child psychoanalyst, Selma Freiberg, came up with this metaphor. Ghost represents your history. Nursery, your parenting, tending to your children. And she noticed that much of our parenting is tied to our past experiences. So there's this tendency to compensate for whatever the insecurity or inadequacy is. It plays itself in the parenting. So this passing on or displacement of that insecurity under the guise of parenting becomes a burden to the child. And the child grows up carrying this burden, and it manifests itself in the form of anxiety, depression, and so on. The legacy bequeathed to the children, which then we see on its most extreme intergenerational pathology, really severe pathology, yes, passed down from one generation to the other.
And different people say, sorry for interrupting, different people say some people call that generational curses. And biblically they say the sins of the father will be visited upon the son. And that's what I kind of...
You just scared me. Yeah, so I myself, as a parent and a teacher, very sensitive to this, watching myself as I parent, this part of me that needs, we're all needy that way. So part of that neediness in the context of parents is needing to be a good parent, right? Because people are watching. Yeah, and that reflects off us, right? So Ghost in the Nursery, being mindful of that. 2005, Alicia Lieberman coined the metaphor angels in the nursery. She describes how in certain family systems or parents provide this context of a safe, secure, understanding situation that allows the child to develop healthily. And she recognized that within that context, there's this whole dimension of understanding, accepting the child the way the child is, in complete and utter love. So, as a conscious parent, if you can provide this, angels in the nursery, you will optimize your child's chances of success. And I'm talking about emotionally, I'm not talking about career. We all found our way, and maybe not all of us are content with where we're at, but in our career, but So what is crucial and important in terms of development are some of the things I mentioned before: emotional, right? Psychological, mental, relational, social. So in the context of these positive experiences, we provide the child with core sense of security and sense of self-worth and sense of self-efficacy. Something to just pause and consider. I'm just going to do one more and then we'll discuss. Okay, conscious discipline teaches adults to regulate emotions so they can help their kids. Conscious discipline is a concept that pertains to you, the parent. I know discipline, sometimes when you hear that it pertains to children, they don't need it. We do. Discipline of mind within the parent can allow for parents to be better at engaging with the children in a proper and respectful way, which will formulate itself, this discipline, in the child. So discipline of mind. So when I consider that, what I mean is clear mind, clarity of mind, and attentiveness. Notice. In conscious discipline, there are three components here: safety, connection, and problem solving. Safety, that is, are you providing a context of safety for the child? And that which you are providing is the child allowed to authentically connect with you in a way that matters to the both of you. So it's just not one way. It's just not verbosity, where I think sometimes parents think when I'm having a conversation, because I hear parents say that, oh, we talk all the time, but they're instilling a whole lot of wisdom onto the child. Yeah. I know. No one does that, right? No one in here, at least. Yes, thank goodness. I've done that before. Then I have to do this. Tell me more. What do you mean? How does that work? That's a gimmick I tell parents to do when you're having peace talks with your kids. I refer to it as peace talks, when you're face-to-face, sitting one-on-one, and you discuss the meaning of life. And everything falls under that context, the meaning of life. It could be Pokemon, or it could be death. At some point, your kids will bring that up, right? If not already, or God, right? Or Pokemon. It's okay. And then problem solving. So in the context of that which you are providing, the sense of security and safety, is the child allowed to problem solve, not you. Is the child allowed to problem solve, not us. Yeah, they can figure it out, but we can support them. Yeah. So if my child asks me, which she did once upon a time years ago, do you believe in God? Because she's trying to figure things out herself. I return the favor and say, do you? And she gives me her spiel. I don't know yet, because my friend at school told me I have to, or I'll go to hell. So I just sit with it, and I go with it. What is hell? I need to know. And she says, hell is lava. They told me there's lava down there. I says, oh, can we play with it? So I go along with it. I says, no, Dad, that lava's hot. I said, oh. Then she came back again. Well, you didn't answer my question. Do you believe in God? Do you think I believe in God? So I keep questioning. Question, question, question. So I'm not problem solving anything. She figures that out herself. A month after that, by the way, she came back and said, Dad, remember when I asked you if you believe in God, you never answered me. And then I returned with, what do you think? And she said, no. I said, whoa. I had no idea she thought that of me. I said, how do you know I don't? And she said, because you believe in the Buddha. I said, wait a minute. Is Buddha not a god? And she says, no, Buddha's a philosopher. So, curious allowed me to step into her mind. And here she is, obviously thought things through, and I had no play in that. I did not resolve anything. She resolved it. And she was content knowing that she thought I believe it. In the end, I asked her, what does Buddha believe in? And she said, compassion. So in the end, that was resolved for her, and she has never asked me since. So questioning, right? Inquiry. Yes, 80% of the time, you're sitting silent, just listening. And 20% of the time, 80% of that, what do? You ask questions. Or you validate their feelings or paraphrase what they're saying, right? Oh, I said that was all I would do because we're coming to the end soon. Let's chit-chat. Thoughts, concerns, share with me, please. Or questions, yes.
Firstly, thank you everybody for tolerating my interruptions. Next time I'll write them down.
Tolerate?
So one question that I came up with again was talking about time in. When the child is very frustrated or angry or just like not wanting to quote unquote be cooperative in any way, how would you go about, or what advice would you give to initiating that time in when the child is very upset?
I often ask permission, even in my office when a kid is frustrated. I will ask for permission if it's okay that I sit with you in this moment.
And if they say no, then it's a timeout?
Yeah, for you. Yes, absolutely. Yes, you step away.
Okay.
Yes, you step. Okay, so what you can say is, and this is what I've said, I have actually stepped out of my office because a kid needed his own space. Mm-hmm. And I have a kid who said, no, I want to step out myself. So we have a waiting area now. And extra offices where I have put the child. But I'll tell you what, it is clear to me that you need your own space and I want to honor that. I'm going to step outside for a moment. When you're ready, you let me know. And when you're ready to talk, help me understand what you need. Short and simple in that way. Yes. I like that because you're right. Sometimes they need their own space and you need a timeout. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
I got a question. A couple slides back, you used the language of giving them a sense of security and self-worth, right? So how do you discern, I think sometimes parents think security can look like I'm keeping my child safe, so I'm hypervigilant, right? We see a lot of the helicopter parents. That's them instilling that sense of security for their child. Self-worth can look like, you had mentioned before, the language of saying, you are beautiful, you are so smart, you are this, that, some of those positive affirmations that we want to kind of steer away from. So how do you discern the two, kind of the healthy side of it and the not so healthy side of that?
Yeah, I want to make clear that part that you said, that if you can avoid judging your child as pretty, smart and talented. The research is very clear that could set a kind of expectation that doesn't meet the child's needs and create more insecurity in the child, because if the child is standing in front of you with their dress twirling around and asks you if they are beautiful, the hidden message is yes, absolutely, when you're in that dress, when you're not. So there's that attachment to that dress defined as beautiful is potentially detrimental. Who was the researcher who did that experiment on, I forget, her name will come to me, but so just be careful, because it's not in fact creating the type of security that you're needing the child to be, because it borders more of a judgment and an expectation for which the child may not be able to meet the next time around. And it's too superficial. It's too artificial. You as a conscious parent want to instill consciousness, right? So that means a much more vast and depth way of seeing the world around you beyond just the material. Yeah, there will be enough judgment and exposure to that will reduce your child. So start with you as a great influence to create that consciousness within your child. So let me ask you this: if the child then says to you, twirling around this dress, and which my daughter did once upon a time. We were about to take Christmas pictures. So she's wearing this dress, and then she came into the room and she twirled around and said, "Daddy, do I look pretty?" What do I say?
You always look pretty?
Yeah.
You say, oh, look at the ruffles on the dress.
You look ugly, right? Reverse psychology. Please don't do that. Did you know when she measured, the psychologist, the impact of a comment, "you look pretty," the damage was as extensive as abuse itself in terms of its equivalence. The damage.
So what do you say?
As a conscious parent.
Did you ask her what she thought?
So yes, as a conscious parent, I looked at her and I said, I couldn't help but to notice there were sequences on that dress. She looked down. It was a purple dress, and she looks like, "Yeah, that look sequences." And then I asked her a question. I couldn't help but to notice, form of a question, the color. And she goes, "Yeah, it's purple." See? Simple.
Now I can picture you twirling in a purple dress.
Simple. Yeah, because I wasn't going to impose. Oh yeah, I should get into politics. I was not going to impose a standard or judgment on her. I just wanted for her to observe. So teaching as a conscious parent to notice, to be aware of what's going on. And then that becomes her. I notice. Yeah.
Follow up on her question. When kids, when like some parents do affirmations and stuff with your child, is there any form of that is?
Can I say something on that?
Yeah.
So I used to run it was called Radiant Girl Retreats, and it was for pre-adolescent girls. And one of the instructors that I worked with wanted to do positive affirmations every day, in which she, let's everyone get in a circle and repeat, I am beautiful, I am strong, I am, this, that, and the other thing. Well, I thought back to my own personal experience of being a child, and some days you do not feel, like if we're being honest with ourselves, we do not feel strong. We might not be in a space where we feel beautiful that day, or whatever it is. So with these, I did research on it, and there's extensive research, like Dr. Tran was talking about, where these affirmations can actually prove harmful and create this internal conflict in which they're on the outside needing to feel like they should be this way, but they're internally they're not, that's not aligned with their experience. And so we had this discussion, and instead it was more of a posing of a question.
Yeah. What if I felt strong?
Or how do I feel?
Yeah.
What is a truth about what's my experience in this moment? And also I think that speaks to the self-worth, and that self-worth doesn't have to be defined based on a beauty or a strength. It can be, you know, we all have this gamut of emotions. We're human beings, you know, we can all experience various things, and every one of those things is worthy. And so it was just this interesting realm to dive into, to where we have to be really mindful of what's the language that we're putting in, I think, society in general. You know, it's kind of counterintuitive that way.
So maybe don't do the affirmation in your child like that, and do more of like the noticing.
Yeah, just an exploration rather than an affirmation. I don't know, Dr.
Yeah.
Tran. I'm sorry I jumped
No,
in,
that
but
I appreciate it.
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we're essentially talking about growth mindset. So when you reduce the child to pretty, the psychology refers to as fixed mindset, where they're stuck there. So we want to foster a growth mindset, which allows the child to be more expansive in terms of acceptance, for example. And teaching the child to accept him or her where he or she is at, and that's okay too. Yeah. Yeah, it's like, you know, when you were talking, I was thinking, wow, this is a lot to know when it comes to conscious parenting, because you think in the name of love, once more, in the name of love, you're doing everything that's right. After all, you're trying to let your child know that she's beautiful. Yeah? And you're thinking that's the right thing to do. But you're creating fixed mindset, rigid thinking in the child as it pertains to herself or himself. Yeah. So we have to be mindful of that. I'm all about just creating consciousness in my child, so I often say, what did you notice? What were you aware of? Were you conscious of that? Serious? You just taught me something today. I'm all about using that kind of language. Yeah. Perceptive. I couldn't see that, but now I notice. More aware. I see. I observe. She doesn't ask me if she looks pretty, ever. But it's great because now she's saying, did you notice the clouds? Did you notice the sky? I did not, but now I do. Comments or other questions?
That's what I
You.
No, you. Like, I think what I keep getting stuck on is like when you like express a boundary, kids doing what they want to do, and then how do you like remain mindful in saying no, but the boundary's still there? I guess that's like what I'm trying to say. So yesterday, Jace didn't apparently eat her lunch, and she came home and was a little stink bug. Like, it was just like, I can't handle you right now. I didn't say that, but I was thinking. And so we go for a walk, because the dog has been in the house all day. We have to go for a walk. Well, she's walking on the ice, but like, is like half a block behind me, and I'm already walking slow. So I'm like, Jace, come on, I need you to walk a little bit faster. I don't mind if you walk on the ice and have fun, but like, also, please be aware of the safety aspect of this. And I'm trying to talk about this, and then I mean, admittedly, I get a little testy, and she's like, you know, doing this when I'm trying to hold her hand. I'm like, this is not how you, like, this is not how we do this. But like, I'm trying to think of what I could have done differently, and I'm having a difficult time of like how I could have approached that in a conscious manner.
Was there safety issues involved? Were there cars around or anything?
Not a ton. I mean, but
Not a ton.
like, you know, it's like a kind of a curved
Mm.
street, so I was worried like a car would come up behind us, or or I wouldn't see her, I guess.
Did a car come up behind you and hit you?
No.
Oh. Okay. All right. Finish this part for me. In everything that must be done. Can you finish that?
In everything that must be done, that's the,
Phrase we're finishing?
yeah.
There is an element of fun. Probably the greatest psychologist of all time, Mary Poppins. Have you not watched that?
I was going to say, a spoonful of sugar, this feels very reminiscent of that.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is. From very little, that's what I made it to be. A spoonful of sugar with Jasmine, whether it's walking on the sidewalk or brushing her teeth or getting her to bed. Everything was fun. So why not walk alongside or ahead, but then make it a game, and then you can control that situation without controlling the child.
So we need to be more childlike in our doing of the things.
I need not say more. Yes, in everything that must be done, there is an element of fun. So, snap! Right? Spoonful of sugar. All right, so that's what you do. You engage with the child, and they will follow your path. And then you hop over here where it's safer. Guess what's going to happen? Yeah, I bet. They'll hop over here. So, the irritation, agitation, where's that coming from?
Yeah, maybe,
So it's okay too. It happens.
That
Yeah.
totally answered one of my next questions.
Yeah. Make it fun. So regress. Later on, I'll talk to you about regression. Why it's so good. Certain types of regression. All right? And it's okay. What the child's doing is natural. And it's okay. It's wonderful. Take pleasure in it. I may be inclined to step aside and watch. 30 minutes later. So, take your time. Yeah. So, I may be inclined to join in. I may be inclined just to listen. Yeah, I like to do that. Just listen. If I could offer anything for your kids, listen, because I know the power. All right. And we know the power, don't we? What is it like to feel heard? Right? Or not heard? Yeah. So what will you do next time?
skip with her.
Yes! I want to see that myself. Please videotape. You. Videotape you. I want to see. We need to talk later. Okay, yes.
So, something you said, and we might cover this later, and I've had conversations with parents who have observed the same thing, and I've seen with Fern, like, a willingness to try something, and then a regression, some sort of anxiety causes, I'm not so sure about riding my bike in particular, a certain way, like, the training wheels were up, and she's starting to get it, but then, I don't remember if it was a particular thing that had happened, but all of a sudden she wasn't as comfortable with that. And working with kids, I feel like I've seen that quite a bit. Well, how would you talk with a parent about that if they're concerned about, like, why am I seeing this, anxiety or, kind of a regression in a skill, it seems. How would you respond?
Yeah, and that's okay too. Remember, looking at this through a conscious lens, that's okay too. So my daughter, when I first taught her, we went to Woodland Park, that parking lot area. Just 5 minutes into it, she was like, I'm done. Cool. We'll try it next week. So going back to that, I just follow her lead. And then each weekend we'd be out there on Saturday, and then she got it eventually. It's okay. Because you need to be okay with it though.
Right.
So
what I see a lot, like, and I think when I was a kid, it was, ooh, you're scared of it, we're going to do it anyway. Like, we're going to do it again. It's safe. You're going to be fine. Do you see what I'm saying?
I see.
Push the kid, like I think often the word is encourage, but really like we're pushing them into it.
Yeah.
And that was my experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Go.
With the thought of this is going to help them overcome the fear.
Okay. I said,
What did you say there?
as you instilling fear. How's that make sense to me? And that's something that's pretty baffling to me sometimes. In our attempt to make our kids feel good, we make them feel bad. I was like, I try to wrap my mind around that. There's no logic to that. But I know some kids may respond that way, but a lot of times, why would you strip that autonomy from your kids by imposing your own will?
So this kind of goes along those lines, but it's a parallel to that kind of. Some of you know my daughter's been injured frequently, and she.
Not here though. No, you're saying.
Yeah. Well, so like in situations where something actually needs to be done and the child does not want it to be done, like I'm going to use the example. After she had broken her arm, she also got in a scooter accident in which she completely road rashed her shoulder, her hip, her leg, and it needed to be cleaned and taken care of. And she did not want that to happen. Like in no means, like not now, not tomorrow, like no. And I wasn't the most present and conscious parent at this time because I'm in my own anxiety and I'm totally future tripping. I'm like, oh, like it's gonna get infected. Like we have to take care of this. Like, I can't let you do this. Like you know, all in my own head.
Yeah.
So, like, no, we have to do this to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna hold you down if you don't let me do this, which I know is not. Like, what would you say in those kinds of situations when it comes to like forcing your child to do something?
Forcing. Yeah, that's tricky, huh? I've tried to prepare my daughter for something like that very early on. I remember going to the doctors and she's needing to get a shot. I knew, or I figured that they would force it into her, and I saw the fear because she saw the fear in the nurse's eyes. What she did was sat, on that bed, the bed they have there, to examine the child, and then just clamp Jasmine's feet like that. I was horrified, and of course she was kind of shocked. I already prepared her through meditation. I've taught her when she was 3, so she could just go through it. As it turns out, she gets a shot on the leg, and she's just fine. That's a challenge. You have to be very careful. Even the slightest sense that you're agitated can exacerbate.
Right, and it does with her.
It does with her?
Yeah, big time.
But I know her. She's hypersensitive, though. With that awareness, she sees. She constantly looks at me like weirdly.
Yeah.
And will stand in front of me and just stare at me. And it's this eye contact. And I'm with her, because I'm all about weird, too, so. And then she walks off. And that sense, she's watching, but I'm easy, calm. Yeah. The approach has to be different in how you approach that. And are you careful with your language too? Because tone and language can all make a difference.
I do try to be careful with my language. Of course, I'm not perfect, and I'm not always as conscious and present as I want to be. I usually watch myself in those moments. I'm like, shut up, to myself.
I like your self-talks. So self-defeating.
I know.
I love it. But you're mindful of it, right? You're like,
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm working on it anyway.
So did you forced her to clean it that moment?
We did get it cleaned out. It was pretty bad. I was actually considering taking her to the hospital, so I was trying to decide whether or not we needed to go to the hospital.
The infection was back? What do you mean?
No, it just the wound. I couldn't tell
Oh,
how
road
bad
rash.
the wound was. It was really dirty, and I just couldn't.
Oh.
So we did get it done with
Okay.
some tears.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And she did let me do it, but I think because she knew that I was going to force it anyway.
Yeah.
Because it definitely wasn't a calm, although it was pretty sad when we finally did do it, she let me do it. And then she sobbed harder. This is really sad, I'm going to share with you all. And then she sobbed harder and she said, I'm a bad kid. And I said, no, honey, you are not a bad kid. And she said, I thought it was gonna hurt way worse and I wouldn't let you do it. And I said, oh, no, honey, you were just scared. You're not a bad kid.
Yeah. Yeah, what makes you think you're bad? So validate that feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because she's feeling that in the moment.
Yeah.
So we want to be there with her. You can process it through eventually, but I always say things
Of
like
course,
that.
I was being selfish in that moment. And I'm like, what a crappy parent. I made my child feel like a bad kid.
Trying to
I wasn't thinking about her feelings.
compensate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want you to
Well,
feel
you-
bad because it makes me feel bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
What a horrible mom to make you feel that way.
and we have to be careful about that, right? Because we're thinking we're helping our kids, but then we invalidate them in the process. Yeah, if Jasmine said, Daddy, I suck, I go, wow, awesome, what makes you suck? Yeah, I would tell her that. Dad, I think I'm dumb. I said, oh, great, what makes you dumb? I'll go with it. Oh, because I wasn't able to relate to this other person. And how does that make you dumb? So I will inquire lots of that, okay? So it's okay for children to hurt. The more pain, the better, because that's where you can help cultivate adversity and perseverance, right? So let them climb the tree 60 feet up and fall down. Awesome, yay! You got a broken leg.
Let's not go there right now. It's too soon. God,
I need a break from the injuries.
Yeah, that's okay, be one with it. Yeah, I'm okay. One time Jasmine climbed 40 feet up. And Vivi, my wife, was like, I'm leaving. So she couldn't look at that, you know. I was like, okay, I'll stay here. Yeah. And if she fell, she fell. It's not, I don't know, I just can't do it. Even knowing that she could get hurt, I need for her to do it because it's not about me. You know, you gotta, I mean, if she gets stung by wasps, yippee, that's awesome, right? If she gets called names, she's been called racist names. Okay, what's going to happen next? So I'm okay with that. Not okay really, but what I mean is that's her experience. It's not mine.
I'm not sure who said it, but somebody said, and I say it all the time, the cracks are how the light gets in. I don't know who said that.
Cohen.
Yeah.
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 Ring the bells that can still ring. Forget your perfect offering. The cracks or where
Yep.
the light comes in or something
Yep.
like that. Yeah, such a good one.
Yeah, I'm a believer. Just leave kids be. Let them play. Let them run around. Let them yell. Let them. That's not people. I think sometimes we see that and say, God, they're so. They need discipline. I think that's what we think here in the West mostly, right? That respect is important and accountability. That's all I hear. Teach my kid respect and accountability. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
So next week is the third week, yes? We're going to continue with more parenting fallibility. And the fourth week is the psychology of children, so that you can understand from their perspective. Okay, thank you. I'll see you next week. Yeah.
Well,
That's
I'm kind of an aggressive learner. It's something I learned about myself.
aggressive. I love
Like,
that.
I want to know the answer now.
I love that. Aggressive learner. That's how you learn.
Great.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to run away with that.